Hello, let's talk about Ntsk, a 2011 novella by Ricky DeCornay, American author and poet, born in 1943. This is sort of a literary combination. This novella is sort of a literary combination between Silence of the Lamb and Lolita, with some key differences and some similarities, which I'd like to touch on. Talking about this really intense, dark book. It centers, and the first part is in from the first person perspective of a a psychiatrist, Dr. Horner, who sleeps with about everybody, but especially a subset of, and he's married, and he sleeps kind of very compulsively, pathologically with a subset of his patients. He divides his patients up into the drears and the spells, and the spells are the ones that he sleeps with in these very kind of primal, passionate relationships. We'll get in on that. Um, you know, his wife is an artist, Akiko, and I think it's significant that she is an artist herself. Um, um, Painter, multimedia. She also uh, likes to collect these things called Ntsk, which are a little um, objects which she collects into cabinets, and he has some of these cabinets in his practice, in his I think it's in his spells office that he keeps it the most. And there's very much a thing of how he's treating, I think, everyone in his orbit as an object to kind of work out, and as trophies for their. Um, this, Ducornet is a poet, and this novella really has that kind of intensity of language. There's this very, especially actually in both parts, but especially noticing, like, in that first person voice that she gives Horner in the first part. It's like there's this kind of very unsettling intensity to how he thinks to himself. Um, he talks about leaving clues for Akiko about what he's been doing. And he talks about it being purposefully, because I long to be discovered, as I always have since infancy, to receive the punishment that is my due, to risk annihilation. I court annihilation. Deception is tiresome. It begins to seriously leech my resources, my strengths, my powers of intellect, my time. And because there is a self within me who would crush Akiko's gentle neck. And I'll stop there, because the next line is very much a pointer to how this novel resolves, especially looking back on it. This is something that happens at the very beginning of the novel, but this is very finely, tautly constructed work. He's it's one of these things of, like, you do not know how much you can actually trust what this guy is saying to you, because he's very much, I Silence of the Lambs and Lolita comes up because I think of Humbert, the pedophile in that is the only voice that you hear really in Lolita, other than kind of the beginning and end little bits. And Silence of the Lambs, where you have someone like Hannibal Lecter, there's that kind of intensity. This is not a serial killer, but as Akiko says at one point, when she's just startled by him at the beginning and she hasn't kind of consciously put all the stuff together, it's like, you're like a serial rapist. And it's like, yeah, he is a serial rapist. He's using the power he has over his patients, and probably the power just a dude in the world, to serially rape his clients, both male and female ones. But he's also convinced himself that his fucking his clients is somehow a new revolutionary technique, that he's toys, at least to himself, with revealing. And if I am called the Marquis de Sade of psychiatry, what of it? Detested by some, venerated by others. Though that said, there's later in the book where he writes a note to Akiko, and he finds he's gone too close to maybe the truth about himself, or he's revealed too much, and he burns that. It's like it's significant that he's hiding all his tracks. He knows that he's to be discovered, that he's to be he's not some new Freud or something like that. He is a predator of things. So where the book really kind of distinguishes itself from something like Lolita, where it is all the voice of Humbert the pedophile, uh, in part two of this book, he gets demoted from first person to third person. It's he now, and it allows the part two allows other voices in there. Akiko, crucially, and his patients to share their perspective. Some of his spells patients makes, and it's interesting doing that because it makes Horner less of the hero or kind of central figure of the story. Like he dominates, and he becomes both kind of darker and more scary, but he also becomes more pathetic as a result, which is like an interesting technique, an interesting um, thing that you can see with like doing the first person. I'm taking you into the person, but you're also like that gives you their it centers it so much on their drama of their life versus the harm, the terrible harm that he does in other people's lives. I think probably the two ones that are kind of the biggest are the cutter, which is how he refers to his patient, by her, basically kind of the pathology, not by actually herself. Um, and that and David Swaincourt slash Jello. I both really love this figure. This all in one thing. They put them as up there with Akiko as kind of like these are the people who've had to deal with and be damaged by and to survive. Some survive this fucker. But I do feel kind of torn by this person because it's it's written in 2011, and I wonder if this was written later. This would actually just be a trans person who's maybe kind of coming to kind of gender identify as a woman versus as a male, but instead it's presented as a dual personality. Like there's two people in there, and it's kind of given this kind of a it's kind of pathologizing what I pathologizing transness, even though I don't know. I doubt if the author would say that this is. I don't know if the author would say that this is actually a trans person. I don't. Well, it's hard to tell. It reminds me, unfortunately, of Silence of the Lambs, where there's a character in that book who is very much more is a malevolent, murderous person. Uh, that the book makes the book kind of makes book and actually the movie both make the kind of motion that they think they're a trans person, but they're something more dark and demon, which is basically it feels like it's pathologizing that, and it's been criticized for that. That is not a new thing. This is not a cis guy discovering the secrets to transness. This is basic, really basic kind of history of trans representation or ill representation. And I do wonder if David Swingcourt slash Jello is another kind of, this is maybe more of another example of that. It feels like kind of a very pulpy element in what should be more of a kind of sympathetic character, that they're doing some kind of they're making this kind of a mental illness where I don't think it actually, well, I don't think it actually should be, and maybe I think it maybe would work better in the novel if it if it wasn't, if it's again somebody who's, yes, struggling with stuff, and had come to Horner for help, and instead ended up in an exploitive um, relationship for that. But so there's that. Though at the center of this is definitely is Horner himself, and how fucking vile he is. But he's vile in a really good way, in the sense of, I I work with people with disabilities in a kind of a home setting, and I often think about, like, um, I think quite rightly, hopefully in a healthy way, of like, how am I helping these people live, but how, I'm hopefully not, in our efforts to help people, how much are we infringing on their freedoms, and how much of that is detrimental, and how much that in the future, looking back, it will be seen as a negative. And I think of, this is these are different steps, but like, I think of people who worked in residential schools, and often, a lot of times, those people in residential schools felt like, we're doing good stuff here, we're helping Native people, because they had what was definitely an incorrect ideology of like, nativeness is a negative thing, and we have to pull them away from that, and beat it out of them. But so, doing all that, um, but they really felt like they were doing the right thing, and I often wonder that, like, I also feel like I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing a positive thing. That this is something, like, this is a way of having work that's meaning. But I often worry about that. So yeah, maybe it's a little extreme to go from, someone who's raping their patients, to worries about, like, am I infringing on people's freedoms. But there's a continuum, and this is somebody in a helping profession, who is obviously way over the line, way the fuck over the line, and is ethically, morally, um, just completely fucked. But it's not beyond the realm of human things. So there's that. There's that. There's also just, the way this book really refuses to kind of go into to the behind what's motivating Horner. In a way, he's just obsessive. This is like, there's this primal thing. He talks about since infancy. He does have his own explanations, but I mean, by the point that he's giving these explanations, he's doing it to try and kind of wiggle out of it. He's been discovered, and he's trying to wiggle his way out, so you don't really believe him. Um, and it's just, like, unsettling in that sense of, like, it's just like, he is really fucked up, and it's like, has he been fucked up since birth? Is he fucked up because something horrible happened to him in his infancy, in his early childhood? There's a real um primal kind of drive there, that, you know is it something didn't get overlaid, or something got put in there? um it's, there's no way of and just, like, there's a violence to him, which is probably where I get the really kind of the serial killer thing. It's like that whole, I want to just snap my wife's neck. Like, I thought she would be the one to fulfill me, but she didn't, and now I fucking hate her. And it's just like, there's this anger, this violence, which is, the violence of his, of the intimacy that he has with his clients as well. It's like he's meeting their hurt and their pain with his own hurt and pain, and it's just fucking, it's a stew that is just, it's terrible. The Marquis de Sade, being talked about in this, um, it's getting to that level of of disturbing, hooking into just, like, the dark forces that do kind of power people, that are in us all, to one degree or another, however much we acknowledge that and however much we're doing that. So, and yet at the same time, this book is just so chilling in how smooth he is and how he's got all the lingo. And I don't mean like he talks a good game. It's just like it's the cleanness, it's the precision, it's the coldness of the language, matched with his actions, which are, the beast with two backs. It's that kind of primalness. So it's all it makes for a really, really gripping read. So yes, those are my thoughts on Ntsk by Ricky Ducornet. Yeah, this is one of her, I think, later books in her career. She's done some more after that. I think she is still about. I don't know how active she is now, but I really, really enjoyed this one, and I will definitely, if I want that kind of a powerful kick, I'm going to go back to her again. Yeah, definitely. We're talking Silence of the Lamb and Lolita kind of kick, but if you're into that kind of a thing, every once in a while at least, I don't do this all the time. It's definitely there. So okay, I will leave it there. More videos later.